Well, welcome to the podcast. I think I should change the name from the Banning Leapshire podcast to Banning and Friends, since that's what it's been for 6 or 7 weeks now. Haven't been on the podcast for a little bit. I actually, I take June off. I took June off and was just home, being productive, getting stuff done. And then me and my family and Jesus Culture were in Europe, England, and Norway for 2 weeks. Incredible time over there. I got to tell you right now, just a really, really encouraging time. We went over to England, and my son graduated high school, so brought him and my family. It's funny, my girls are going to take him over for his senior trip, and then my 25 and 21-year-old are like, well, we want to come. And so we crammed everybody into rooms and went. And it was just wonderful, incredible time over there. But then we had a conference in Birmingham, our pastors' conference. First time we've done our pastors' conference in the UK. And it was special, man. It was incredible. Presence of God, so much hunger in the room. Pastors from all over, not just the UK, but all over Europe. About 10 nations were coming in, and it was incredible. A wonderful, wonderful time, and just love what God's doing over there. And then went and spoke in Norway. I want to tell you this real quick. I'm going to ramble a little bit on the podcast today, and I'm going to introduce a couple books to you. But I want to tell you what, one of the things that encourages me so much is it doesn't matter where I go, there is an increase of hunger. And an increase, I'd say an increase of 3 things. An increase of hunger, an increase of expectation, like people expecting God to move. And I would say there's an increase in resolve around the issue of revival. That there's a fresh hunger around the world. There's a fresh hunger for the presence of God. There's a fresh hunger for God himself, just a desire to seek him. And I think just a real expectation that God is doing something. He's on the move. And so an expectation, but also I just see such a deeper resolve in the hearts of people that we need revival. We need an outpouring of the Holy Spirit. We need a move of God. And so it's very hard to be in those environments and be discouraged. I remember one of the things I say is, one of the ways that we stay encouraged and full of hope as believers is recognizing that the stirring and the hunger that's happening around the world right now is connected to God doing something. So I'll explain that. There's a book called World Aflame, and the author actually, it's about the Welsh revival. So if you know anything about the Welsh revival, if you are Pentecostal or charismatic in any setting, if you're in a Pentecostal or charismatic church, somewhere your line or your roots go back to the Welsh revival, which helped kind of fuel the Azusa Street revival. So Azusa Street happened in Pasadena in LA in 1906. And William Seymour, Frank Bartleman, it was kind of this birthing of Pentecost again, Pentecostalism. But 2 years prior to that was the Welsh revival, one of the most profound worldwide impact revivals. I think it was in about 9 months, over 100,000 people on that island in Wales. Didn't just get saved, but I joined churches, got plugged in. And in just a very short amount of time, led by a 26-year-old named Evan Roberts, and just meetings. And they were the stories they tell out of Wales. Judges had no work, policemen had no work, bars were shut down, sporting events were shut down. Like just the stories, like donkeys couldn't, like they didn't. They talk about in the mines that these miners cussed so much, that's how donkeys responded to their commands. Well, they got saved and stopped cussing, and they didn't know how to get the donkeys to respond, because just stories of police officers that had no jobs, so they formed quartets, meetings that were just led by the congregation. There wouldn't even be a worship leader. It was just the congregation just singing to God in worship. My point is, the Welsh revival, which broke out in 1904, in the book, it talks about how It connects this concept that just like when a baby is born, that it talks about birth pangs don't create the baby creates the birth pangs. So when birth pangs are happening, that's not creating the baby, it's the baby that's creating the birth pangs. And he ties it into the concept that hunger, prayer, but in particular prayer, he said that for 2 years, from 1902 to 1904, all across Wales, there was this rumbling and stirring of prayer. There was this increased desire to seek the Lord. There was this increased hunger, and it began to manifest in prayer. It said prayer was popping up all across Wales, unbeknownst, unconnected to one another. They were beginning to pray, and then 1906 it breaks out. And he talks about this. He says, prayer didn't cause revival. Revival caused the prayer. In the same way that birth pangs don't create the baby creates the birth pangs. Prayer doesn't create revival. Revival creates prayer. And this was the really encouraging thing, that when you see an increase in hunger, when you see a stirring of expectation, when you travel around the world and there's just an awareness to seek the Lord, a hunger for his presence, a desire to get rid of everything else and just go after God, I would say this: it's not even that those things are causing revival, it's what God is about to do through revival that's causing that fresh hunger in the lives of people. The reason why I share that with you is that actually is what encourages us. Oh, I just leave England being in a room of hundreds of pastors and seeing the hunger, the desire to seek God, to give him everything. I look and say, that's happening because revival. That's happening because a baby is on its way. And just so encouraged. Here in America, different parts of the world, I just am so encouraged what I'm seeing in churches all over the place. But here's what I want to talk about on the podcast. I don't have a real topic today except for this. I thought I'd introduce to you 2 books. As a church here in Sacramento and San Diego, both of our churches, we have taken the summer, we call it Summer of Discipleship. I'm very much on this bent that we should not accept things as normal that we sometimes accept as normal. So sometimes in the church, we look at summertime and we say, hey, it's kind of a time where everybody's on break or on vacation or don't show up as much. So you kind of take your foot off the gas, you relax a little bit. And I said, no, I think summertime is when we can see some of the most strategic growth. I think summertime is when we should go be intentional about going deeper in the things of God as congregations. And so we try to do that. And so this year we did something called Summer of Discipleship, and we just decided to go through 2 books. I think I stole this idea from Levi Lusko. They always do a summer book reading club. I loved it. So we said we're going to take 2 books and we're going to go through them as churches. And so we have the authors come in and speak. And so this one I want to talk to you about because I actually want you to go back and listen to these. If you haven't, if you're listening right now, you need to go back and listen to them. And so we picked 2 books this summer. The first one that we had the first week of June, a good friend. Both these guys that came in to speak are just really great friends. Just love them. Dr. Darren Whitehead, pastors Church of the City, has multiple campuses in Nashville, in the Nashville area. But Darren is a brilliant leader. He's a brilliant pastor. He's a brilliant builder. He's a brilliant leader, and he's a better man. He's an incredible husband, incredible father, and is leading a significant church in Tennessee, in Nashville. And he had actually, a book came out of called The Digital Fast. It really kind of came out of, as a church, they were going through this together. And so he decided to actually write a book on it. So there's a book I want you to get. You can't see it if you're listening to the audio, but if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see this. There's a book called The Digital Fast, 40 Days to Detox Your Mind and Reclaim What Matters Most. He actually came and did a whole message on this the first Sunday of June, and it was powerful. It was sobering, actually. It was sobering, eye-opening, powerful. But also sometimes when we're beginning to talk about the effect that online is having on our lives, the effect that online is having on our children, it can be pretty daunting and pretty overwhelming because we are so plugged in and we are so addicted that it feels so overwhelming to think that I'm going to unplug from that and I'm going to kind of try to detox from that. But what I love about what he did was he does it full of grace, a ton of research, a ton of information about really what this is doing. And I will say this isn't, I think if we're going to be followers, here's what I would say. We live in Babylon. We live in a world system that does not foster or push us towards a healthy relationship with Jesus. So the things of the world are not moving us towards health and are not strengthening our relationship with God. Therefore, we have to learn how to, while we're living in Babylon, we have to learn how to navigate Babylon. Or, Daniel, Shadrach, and Daniel, and then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they had to kind of go, hey, we live here, but it doesn't mean I participate in everything, and I definitely don't participate in everything at the same level and same way everybody does. I'm sharing that all to say is the digital fast, it's not even like he called it the digital fast, but it's actually not just about fasting digital. It's about how do we, in this world, manage the digital intake we're consuming in regards, in particular, I would say, you can go listen to his word and you can read the book, in regards, in particular, to the smartphones. How much it's rewiring our brain, how much it's distracting us, how much it's dealing with our self-image, how much it's dealing with all this stuff. And so I'm going to share you right now, you need to go get this book. It's called The Digital Fast by Dr. Darren Whitehead. He does a sermon where he gives an overview of the entire book and the message of the entire book. It will challenge you. It will inspire you. It will convict you. It will sober you. But it will also give you real courage and momentum and tools to do something. So he writes about all that, and then there's 40 days. You just walk through this thing through 40 days. We have entire families doing this digital fast right now. We've got individuals, and the feedback we've already gotten, I think we're 35 days into it. The feedback we've gotten already has been remarkable and profound. So I want to encourage you. It's called The Digital Fast, 40 days to detox your mind and reclaim what matters most. And I'm going to tell you right now, as a disciple of Jesus, as a follower of Jesus, we have to learn to be intentional about how we interact with this world. We have to be intentional about how we interact with this world. And I think that this book is phenomenal, especially it's for everybody, young adults, everybody's dealing with this. But if you have kids in the home, you absolutely need to read this book. And so make sure you do that, okay? The Digital Fast. The second book that we read, and we just had him with us this last Sunday, Pete Greig. Pete Greig is a dear friend. I love Pete. Him and his wife, Sammy, are some of my favorite people. Pete, in 1999, started a movement of prayer called 24/7 Prayer. They're now in 100 nations. 24/7 Prayer is in 100 nations. They have something called Lecto 365. It's an app. They have something like 290,000 daily users. They have more have downloaded it, but they have 290,000 daily users using this app just for daily devotions. It's really powerful what they're doing. And he's got a church in Guildford outside London. But one of the guys that's been a champion for prayer for a quarter of a century, for 25 years, he has championed prayer in the church. He wrote a book recently called How to Pray, A Simple Guide for Normal People. So Pete Greig, How to Pray, A Simple Guide for Normal People. He actually just spoke kind of the overview of this book as well, which is really based around, he just spoke it. You can go get it. It will be on our podcast. He spoke it for both of our campuses. And you can go get it, but it's just called How to Pray, A Simple Guide for Normal People. And he goes through the acronym PRAY, and he just, pause, rejoice, ask, yield. You have to go listen to the message. A brilliant, message on just the simplicity of those four things. That when we come to pray, we pause, we rejoice, we ask, we yield. But he kind of unpacked each of those four things and just kind of what that looks like. And so right now our church is actually going through this one, how to pray. And I would encourage you, listen, I am more and more convinced that the Christian life is a life of growth, that we need to be moving towards growth. We need to be moving towards maturity. We need to be moving towards deepening our relationship with the Lord. And so one of the ways we do that, and we need to be actually tending the fire that God's given us. And I have just found over the years that one of the things that fuels the fire in my life is actually what I would describe just throwing logs on the fire. And many times those logs are books that I've read. Books that I've read that have been catalytic. Books that I've read that have stirred and motivated and challenged. I love books. This is what I love about Pete. That's what I love about Darren. It's this thing where I feel encouraged and inspired, but simultaneously I feel provoked and challenged. Those are my favorite relationships. My favorite relationships are the one that inspire me, encourage me, but at the same time provoke and challenge me. And I think that both of these books do that, and both of the authors for sure have done that in my life. So if you want to check that out, you can go to JesusCulture.tv. Both sermons will be on JesusCulture.tv. I also believe they're on our YouTube page. You can go to YouTube, JesusCulture.tv, or just on any platform there's a podcast. Wherever our podcast is found, it's just called Sermon of the Week. So Sermon of the Week will have that. The first part of June is Darren Whitehead, and then just recently, this first part of July is Pete Greig talking about prayer. So go check it out. And you know what? I'd love to hear from you. If you want to, send me a DM on Instagram, or let me know if, just reading this book has impacted your prayer life, or how it's going through kind of the digital fast 40 days. It's radical, man. 40 days, by the way, is a long time. It's amazing how long 40 days is when you kind of unplug from your normal routine of how you interact with digital world. It's also crazy how tied into the digital world we are. I think one of the things you realize is, I don't know what the actual clinical definition of addiction is, but this may be close with how we are interacting. He was even talking about that and I find myself all the time. I stop at a stoplight and immediately reach for my phone. I mean, that's a problem. That's a problem. We can't even sit with our thoughts. We can't even sit quietly. I find my own kids, they can't, a normal, just pop song, just a normal, radio song, 3 minutes, they don't make it through. And they have the ability, because they're listening to it on a device streamed that allows them to skip it. They go halfway through the song, skip to the next song, halfway through the song, skip to the next song. So I think that we have to be very intentional as followers of Jesus in a world that we don't belong in a world that's not necessarily fueling health in your life. And so you can check all of that out. All right. Here we go. One more time. Digital Fast by Darren Whitehead. How to Pray, A Simple Guide for Normal People by Pete Greig. Join us. You may not go to our church, but that's okay. You can still be a part of our summer of discipleship. It's not too late, and I really think it'll bless you. I think it'll bless you. So listen, and I'm so grateful. I was so encouraged by all the podcasts, and Becky and Cody and Mark and the different ones that jumped in to kind of help Banning and Friends. We also have some stuff coming up. We're gonna there's some exciting stuff coming up, and that we're gonna be morphing and bringing to you. So, all right, guys, thanks for jumping in.